Hi lovelies, you're welcome to Stanyaka. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to cut this one hand off shoulder stylish top. So if this is something you're interested in, please watch this video till the end. So I've gone ahead to mark my body measurement. This my pattern paper is on fold. Okay, now I've gone ahead to mark my shoulder line. From that my shoulder line, I mark down to my bust line. From my shoulder line, I mark down to my under bust line. From my shoulder line, I mark down to my front waistline. That is my half length for the front. Then from my shoulder line, I mark down to the full length of this my top. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my shoulder measurement divided by 2 here on my chest line. Then I will mark 3 inches for the neck wideness. Okay, so from this my shoulder measurement here, I'll come down by 1 inch to get the shoulder slope. Then I'll go ahead to connect it like so to the neck wideness on my shoulder line. The next thing I will do is to take my armhole circumference divided by 2. I'll mark the point here and then I'll go ahead to connect it this way to the shoulder slope point. I'll also rule a straight line across like this. This line is my chest line. Okay, now after doing that, I'm just going to label this and then I'll go ahead to divide my armhole circumference by 2. So after marking the midpoint, I will go in by half of an inch there and then I will mark my bust circumference divided by 4 here on my chest line. Then I'll go ahead to connect the front armhole like so. After doing that, the next thing I will do is to come down by 3 inches for the neck depth. And then I'll go ahead to connect the points together like so. Now after doing this, the next thing I'm going to do is to divide my nipple to nipple measurement by 2. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches divided by 2 will give me 4 inches. So from the bust line, I'll mark that 4 inches all the way to the full length line. After marking the points, I'll go ahead to connect the points together like so. This is my dart leg. Okay, now this is my center front, while this is my side front. So on my under bust line on the center front, I'm going to mark half of an inch, while on the side front, I will mark 1 inch. Now, if you're on a bigger size, make use of 1.5 inches here, okay? Now, I'll come up from the full length line on the dart leg by 2 inches. Then I'll go ahead to connect the dart like so. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to connect it like so to the bust line, okay? Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to connect it from this point here to the middle of my armhole. So I'm going to go in with my pencil to connect it first. Then after doing that, from this my armhole dart here, I will come down by half of an inch. And then I will go ahead to reconnect it back to the dart leg on the bust line. After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to come up from this dart, my armhole dart here by 1 inch, and then I will extend it like so. Now this is to avoid any shortage when joining the two princess darts. Okay, now after doing that, I'll go ahead to just outline this first princess dart line. Okay, now after doing that, this is my bust measurement divided by 4. So I'm going to replace the half inch I have here on my chest line back. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and reconnect the armhole like so. So this is my new armhole. Okay, I will no longer be needing this other armhole here, which is the old one. Now after doing that, I'm just going to take my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll mark it on my front waistline, and then I'll replace the dart intake on my under bust line here on my front waistline. The next thing is to take my hip circumference divided by 4. I'll mark it there. There is no dart to be replaced there. Okay, so I'll go ahead and connect the body points together like so. So after doing that, below the bust line at the side, I'll come down by 1.5 inches to get my side dart. Now this is the difference between my front half length and my back half length. Okay, so I'll go ahead to close this up. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to come up from the side for the full length line by 1.5 inches. Okay, then I'll go ahead to connect the shape of the blouse at the down like so. Okay, the next thing is to go in by 2 inches on the full length line from the center front part. I'll go ahead and mark it. Then from the front waistline, I will come down by 2 inches on the center front part as well. Now I'll go ahead to connect both points together. Now this has formed the shape that this dress has at the middle. Okay, now I'll go ahead and blend it like so. Now after doing that, I'm going to be cutting this side off. The next thing I'm going to do now is to outline the shoulder line, the armhole area, and the neckline. Then I will go in with my tracing wheel to trace this pattern to the other side of my pattern paper. Okay, so after doing that, I'll just go ahead to mark out the points, the parts that I traced out with my tracing wheel. Okay, so after doing that, I'm going to rule a straight line at the middle of this pattern. Okay, now after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to divide what is left on my shoulder line by 2. Then from one side, I'm going to mark 1 inch. Then on the other side, I'm going to mark 1 inch. So I've gone ahead to use my pencil to connect this shape to the middle line on my chest line. Then I went ahead to use my marker to outline it. So do this with your pencil before using your marker to outline it, okay? Now this is where the button is going to be. Now for me to get the off shoulder line, I'm going to come up from the chest line by 2.5 inches. And then I'll go ahead to close this armhole that like so. Then I will use my pencil to connect this to the other neck wideness on the other side. Okay, now after doing that, I'll use my marker to outline it. So this part is the off shoulder of this gown. So I'll cut through the bust line to close the side dart, but before closing the side dart, I'll go ahead to cut this out so it will be enable me to close the side dart. Okay, so just watch what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to cut this through the middle part and then I'll cut it like so. So this is one side of the dress. Now I'll go ahead to close the side dart. Now I'll use my tape to tape this down. Then I will replace whatever that I shortened from the side of this dress. Okay, so I'll go ahead to connect it back like so. Then I'll go ahead to continue cutting this. So this part is the part that you're going to put your sleeve. Okay, while this other part I'm cutting here is the off shoulder part of this dress. Okay, so just watch closely where I'm cutting this from. I'll go ahead to also close the side that here. I'll cut through the bust line and then I will close the side that. Use my tape to tape this down. Then I'm going to replace whatever that I shortened from the side, just like I did for the other front side. Okay, now after doing that, I'll go ahead to cut this out and this will be all for the front pattern of this dress. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very helpful, please do not forget to subscribe, comment, share and like. Okay, now for the back pattern, I went ahead to mark my body measurement and then my pattern paper is on fold. I mark out 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance. Then I rule a straight line there. I also mark out my shoulder line to my bust line, my shoulder line to my back waistline. Now the half length of my back is 16.5 inches, while for the front is 18 inches. So the 1.5 inches is what I usually take as my side dart for the front pattern. Okay, so to get the full length of my back pattern, I brought out the front pattern paper. I will measure from the front waistline to the full length line. I got 8 inches. So I'm going to measure from the back waistline to get that same 8 inches for the full length of the back pattern. Okay, now I'll go ahead to take my shoulder measurement of my shoulder line divided by 2. I will take the neck wideness of 3 inches. From that my shoulder point, I'll come down by 1 inch to get the shoulder slope. Then I'll go ahead to connect it like so. After doing that, I'll go ahead to take my armhole circumference divided by 2. From my shoulder slope point here, I'll mark the point and then I'll go ahead to connect the points together like so. After doing that, I'm going to rule a straight line across like so. This line which I'm going to label my chest line. After doing that, I'll go ahead to label this my chest line and then I will come down for the back neck depth by 1.5 inches. And then I'll go ahead to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 here on my chest line. And then go ahead to connect the back armhole like so. After doing that, I'm going to come off from my chest line by 2.5 inches. I'm going to label this line my upper chest line. This will give me guideline for the off shoulder to get the off shoulder for the back pattern. Okay, now go ahead and mark my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which gives me 4 inches. I'll mark that from my upper chest line all the way to my full length line. Okay, now I'll go ahead to connect the points together like so, and this line will be my dart leg. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to mark half inch on both sides of the dart leg on my back waistline, and then I'll come off from the full length line on the dart leg by 2 inches. Then I'll go ahead to connect the points together like so. So I'm going to be doing this like a princess dart for the back pattern. Now if you don't want to do this a princess dart for the back pattern, you can just go ahead to hold your dart like this on the fabric. Okay, now I'll go ahead to connect this like so to the chest line. After doing that, I'm going to measure my armhole circumference and I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay, I will get the midpoint. Then from that midpoint is where I'm going to connect the armhole princess dart to the dart leg on the chest line. Okay, just like this. Then after doing that, I'll go ahead to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, which I already did here, and then I will mark my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll mark it there, then I'll replace the dart intake of 1 inch. I'll also go ahead to mark my hip circumference divided by 4. There is no dart intake to be replaced here. Okay, now I'll go ahead and connect the body points together like so. So after doing that, I'm going to come off from the side at the full length line by 1.5 inches to get the shape of the down of this dress. Okay, now I'll go ahead and connect it like so. So I'll outline the full length line to the zipper allowance area and also outline the armhole part. Okay, now after doing that, I'm going to be working on the zipper bulge. Okay, now I'm going to extend my waistline to the zipper allowance area. I will go in by 1/2 inch and then I will connect it like so. Now this is to avoid any zipper bulge. Okay, now I'll go ahead and connect it this way. I'm going to be cutting this side off. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to connect the back, one side of the back neck depth to the upper chest line like so. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to cut this back pattern out. After I'm done cutting this, I'm going to extend the upper chest line to the zipper allowance area like so, and then I'm going to slit this open. So I'll go ahead to cut this out. Now this is the part that has hand, okay, for this dress, okay, and this is the zipper allowance area, while this other part here is going to be the part for the off shoulder. Okay, you can see that I already mark out the same line on this other side. Okay, so I'll go ahead and cut this out from that upper chest line. Okay, now this part is going to be the off shoulder part of this dress. Now I'll go ahead to cut this out. Okay, so what I did was I used my tracing wheel to trace out the pattern on the other side of my pattern paper. Okay, and I did this off camera just like I did for the front. So after doing this, please go ahead to label this so you know which part to join when sewing. Okay, now this is it for the back pattern of this dress. This is it for the side that has hand, then this is it for the side with off shoulder. Okay, so I'll go ahead to cut out the cape of this dress. Now to cut out the cape of this dress, you're going to measure from one zipper line of the back pattern across to the other zipper line of the back pattern. Okay, that is, you measure from this point across to your neck to the other side of the zipper line. Okay, now after doing that, I went ahead to bring a plain pattern paper which I labeled my cape, and then I made use of 4 inches for the boldness of the cape. Then I will take the measurements that I took from the blouse itself. Okay, that is after you finish sewing the blouse, that is when you can take the measurement. Okay, now this is it for the cape of this dress, and this is totally all for this tutorial. I will see you in my next tutorial, but for now, bye and thanks for watching.